Have you ever noticed that the older you get, the more you realize some burdens weren't ever truly necessary? Have you ever wondered what life might feel like if you stopped carrying what you picked up only to survive? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are stepping into a quiet, powerful teaching that becomes more precious with age. Not because younger people cannot understand it, but because time has a way of making the truth impossible to ignore. After 70, many people begin asking different questions. Not how do I impress them, but how do I rest? Not how do I win, but how do I stop suffering over things I cannot control? Not how do I hold on, but how do I let go without becoming empty? Buddhist wisdom does not tell you to give up on life. It teaches you to give up what steals life. It teaches you to release the forms of clinging that turn ordinary aging into unnecessary suffering. It teaches you how to enter the most peaceful chapter, not by moving far away from the world, but by moving closer to reality as it is. Let me tell you a story. Not a perfect story about a perfect saint, a human story. Because the Buddha path is for humans. There was a man named Elias who turned 71 in a small house that had seen decades of seasons. The walls carried the faint marks of children's height measurements from long ago, now forgotten under fresh paint. The kitchen cabinet door still squeaked the same way it did 20 years earlier. The garden had fewer flowers than it used to, but the soil remained faithful. Elias lived alone now. His wife had passed some years earlier. His children were grown with lives of their own, busy and loving in the way modern life allows, loving but often distant. On the morning after his birthday, Elias sat by the window with a cup of warm tea and felt something surprising. He felt tired of fighting, not tired in the body only, tired in the soul. He realized he had spent much of his life carrying invisible weights, regrets, expectations, grudges, pride, fear of being forgotten, fear of losing control. And he wondered if it had to be this way for the rest of his time. Outside, a neighbor was raking leaves. The sound was steady. The leaves did not argue. They simply moved as they must. Elias watched and thought, maybe peace is like that, not dramatic, not loud, just steady. Later that day, he walked to a small community center where an elderly monks sometimes gave talks. Elias was not a strict religious man. He respected the idea of practice, but he never thought it belonged to him. Yet something had shifted. After 70, the mind begins to value the essential. Elias sat in the back and listened. The monk spoke about letting go, but not in a vague motivational way. He spoke about specific kinds of attachment that become heavier in old age if you do not release them. He spoke about the weight karma continues to shape the mind even after retirement, because karma is not only what you do with your hands. Karma is also what you repeat with your heart. Elias returned home and could not stop thinking. That night, he opened a drawer and found old letters. Some were beautiful, some were painful. There was a letter from his father that he had kept for decades, filled with criticism that once cut him deeply. There was a note from his wife, written during a difficult time in their marriage, when they both said things they did not mean. There was a card from a friend he had not spoken to in years after an argument that felt unfixable. Elias held those papers and felt the past rise like smoke. He realized he had been living with ghosts, not supernatural ghosts, but mental ghosts. The mind can turn memory into a prison if you keep feeding it. The next morning, Elias did something unusual. He placed the letters on the table and sat down in silence. He did not try to force his mind quiet. He simply watched what arose. He watched regret. He watched pride. He watched sadness. He watched anger. And then he remembered something the monk said. After 70, you can keep rehearsing the old chapter, or you can begin the peaceful chapter by releasing what cannot be changed. This is where the first truth begins to enter. The truth that the past is not a place you can live. You can learn from it, honor it, and then let it be. The past is a teacher, not a home. When you keep living there, you keep paying rent in suffering. Elias realized he had been paying that rent for decades. He thought of his father. The criticism had shaped him. It made him work hard, but it also made him hungry for approval. Even when he achieved success, he never felt fully enough. The approval he wanted most was from a man who was no longer alive. That is a painful kind of karma, the karma of chasing a door that will never open. Elias closed his eyes and spoke quietly, not to his father, but to his own heart. I release the need for the past to apologize. I release the dream that childhood can be rewritten. I release the fantasy that pain must be repaid with pain. He did not feel instant freedom, but he felt something loosen. Over the next weeks, Elias began practicing a new way of living. He treated his days like a gentle retreat without leaving his neighborhood. He woke earlier. He took slow walks. He stopped rushing. He began noticing the way the mind grabbed and clung. He noticed how easily he compared his life to others. Even at 71, the mind can still compare. He would see a neighbor with more visitors and think, they are more loved. He would see someone healthier and think, they are more blessed. He would see someone with more money and think, they are more successful. Comparison does not retire just because you do. Then Elias saw the second truth. Comparison is a thief that never stops stealing. It steals peace from young people and it steals peace from elders. It makes you forget the sacredness of your own path. It makes you measure a human life like a product. In Buddhist terms, comparison is a form of delusion. It assumes you can understand another person's karma by looking at their surface. It assumes their joys have no suffering behind them. It assumes your losses have no meaning. None of that is true. Every life has hidden burdens. Every life has hidden blessings. So Elias began practicing a different inner habit. When comparison arose, he named it gently. This is comparison. Then he returned to gratitude, not forced gratitude, but simple gratitude. Warm tea, a body that can still walk, a memory of love, the ability to breathe, the sound of wind in trees. Gratitude did not erase loneliness, but it softened it. It stopped loneliness from becoming bitterness. That matters, because bitterness is one of the heaviest burdens people carry into older age. Bitterness can make a long life feel like punishment. Wisdom can make a long life feel like a gift. One afternoon, Elias received a call from his son. The son said he was too busy to visit that weekend. Elias felt disappointment rise, then resentment. He almost said something sharp. He almost used guilt. Parents and children can trade guilt like currency, especially when both are tired. But Elias remembered the monk again. Do not interfere with karma. Do not use emotional manipulation to control love. Love cannot be demanded. Love is invited through kindness. This became the third truth for Elias. The truth that control is not love. Control is fear. Many older people cling to control because the body changes, the world changes, and uncertainty grows. Control feels like safety, but control destroys relationships. It creates distance. It makes children avoid you. It makes friends feel managed. It makes life smaller. So Elias did something new. He said to his son, "I understand. Take care of yourself. We will find another day." His voice was calm. He hung up and sat with the feeling. He did not pretend it did not hurt. He allowed the hurt without turning it into a weapon. This is a form of practice that looks simple and is extremely deep. It is the practice of letting emotions pass without using them to harm others. That is compassion. That is wisdom. That is karma purification in real time. As Elias continued this path, he began noticing another burden that people rarely admit: the burden of identity. The identity of being the strong one, the provider, the respected worker, the one who knows. After retirement, those roles often dissolve. People panicked because they think without the role, they are nothing. Elias had been proud of his career. He had built a reputation. He had been the one people came to for answers. Now fewer people called. Fewer people needed him. This emptiness felt like loss, but it was also an opening. Because identity is a tight coat. When it loosens, the soul can breathe. This became the fourth truth. You are not your title. You are not your role. You are not your productivity. You are not the story others tell about you. You are the awareness that can witness all stories and still remain present. When Elias saw this, he began to enjoy being ordinary. He began to enjoy not performing. He began to enjoy quiet tasks with no audience. He washed dishes slowly. He watered plants. He listened to birds. He stopped trying to prove he mattered. And here is the strange thing. The more he stopped proving, the more he felt a calm sense of worth. Not the worth of ego, but the worth of being alive. Then a memory returned. A friend named Marcus. They had a falling out 15 years earlier. It started with something small, a misunderstanding, a sharp word. Then pride solidified it. Neither reached out. Years passed. The silence became a wall. Now Elias realized the wall was made of one thing: pride. This became the fifth truth. Pride is expensive. It costs you time. It costs you connection. It costs you peace. It pretends to protect dignity, but often it protects only the ego. And the ego is never satisfied. Elias found the old address of Marcus. He wrote a short letter. No long explanations. No dramatic defense. Just a truth spoken gently. I have thought about you. I regret that we let pride win. If you are willing, I would like to speak before time runs out. He mailed it and felt his heart tremble. That tremble was life. It was vulnerability. It was also freedom. Weeks later, Marcus called. His voice sounded older, softer. He said he had been waiting for that letter without admitting it. They spoke for an hour. They did not solve every detail. They did not rewrite history, but they released the chain. This is the sixth truth in living form. Forgiveness is not approving harm. Forgiveness is releasing the chain that keeps you tied to the harm. Forgiveness is for the heart, not for the other person's ego. Elias noticed how light he felt afterward, not because he won, but because he stopped carrying. As months moved forward, Elias faced another reality. The body. Aging brings pain, limits, uncertainty. Many people fight the body with anger. They insult themselves. They say my body betrayed me. But the body is not an enemy. The body is impermanence made visible. Fighting it creates suffering on top of pain. This became the seventh truth. The body changes, and resistance adds unnecessary suffering. Acceptance does not mean you stop taking care of yourself. It means you stop hating reality. When you stop hating reality, the mind becomes calmer, and calm reduces pain perception and improves choices. Elias began stretching gently. He ate more simply. He slept earlier. He visited a doctor when needed without shame. He stopped pretending youth was coming back. And strangely, he felt younger in spirit, not in the body, in the spirit, because the spirit becomes young when it stops carrying denial. Then, quietly, the final truth arrived, the one that stands behind all the others. The truth that everything we love will change. People will leave, either by distance or by death. Objects will break. The mind itself will one day stop forming thoughts. This is not meant to be depressing. It is meant to wake you up. This became the eighth truth. Impermanence is not a curse. Impermanence is the reason compassion matters now. It is the reason gratitude matters now. It is the reason you do not delay kindness. It is the reason you do not waste years holding grudges. It is the reason you stop arguing over small things as if you have endless time. When Elias truly felt impermanence, something softened in him. He began calling his children with less demand and more warmth. He began telling them stories not to control them, but to share love. He began giving away items he no longer needed, not because he was preparing for death with fear, but because he was practicing non-attachment. He was practicing freedom, and then something changed in the home itself. The house no longer felt like a museum of the past. It felt like a living place. Elias opened windows more often. He played gentle music sometimes. He invited a neighbor for tea. He smiled more easily. The peaceful chapter had begun, not because life became perfect, but because his mind became less clinging. Now, I want to speak directly to you, because if you are listening and you are younger, this teaching is still for you. If you are older, this teaching is especially for you. The peaceful chapter after 70 is not created by luck. It is created by release. Release of what cannot be controlled. Release of resentments that do not protect you. Release of pride that isolates you. Release of the need to be right more than you need to be kind. Release of the fantasy that life must obey your preferences. And the beautiful part is this: when you release these burdens, you do not become empty. You become spacious. Spaciences is where wisdom lives. Spaciences is where compassion becomes natural. Spaciences is where destiny softens. Because destiny is not only events. Destiny is the inner climate you live in while events happen. Two people can live the same external life and have different destiny experiences because their minds are different. The mind that clings suffers more. The mind that releases suffers less. That difference becomes the most precious wealth in later years. I have seen people around me learn this in different ways. Some waited until illness forced them to stop. Some waited until a funeral reminded them that time is real. Some learned it through loneliness, realizing pride was not worth it. Some learned it through grandchildren, watching a child laugh and realizing life is simple when you stop making it complicated. And I have also seen the opposite. People who refuse to let go. They keep collecting grievances like trophies. They keep demanding the world apologize. They keep punishing family with silence. They keep measuring love like a transaction. They become older, but not wiser. Their chapter becomes bitter, not peaceful. The difference is practice. If you are in your later years and you want peace, begin with one release today. 1. Not 10. Not a perfect transformation. 1. Release one grudge by deciding you do not need it to survive. Release one obsession with control by allowing someone to be imperfect. Release one harsh belief about yourself by speaking gently to your own heart. Release one old regret by learning the lesson and stopping the replay. That is the Buddha path in daily life, step by step, breath by breath. Thank you for spending this time with me. I want you to share your thoughts and stories in the comments. What is one burden you wish you could put down? What is one relationship you wish you could soften? What does the most peaceful chapter of life look like to you? Please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and stay connected with this community. Your support helps keep these long teachings alive and helps more people learn how to turn aging into wisdom, karma into clarity, and time into compassion. Until next time, breathe gently, release what is heavy, keep what is kind, and remember that the most peaceful chapter begins the moment you stop carrying what your heart was never meant to hold.